Have you ever just had one of those really awkward encounters where you just like a situation you cannot get out of?
It's my entire life, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like literally
AKA
every day.
every single day, right? So I got a wedding band. My aunt, for Christmas, she gifted me one of hers. That's like part of her set, but she wanted me to have it.
Oh, that's really lovely.
It was beautiful. Yeah, it was so touching and it's really beautiful, but it is like 5 sizes too big for my finger. And so obviously I've got to go and get it resized. So I go to this jeweler who is like, I think that jeweler's been there for like 200 years. It's one of the nicer ones in where we live. Maybe the nicest. And I'd been in there before, and the lady in there was like, well, because it has the shape of it, it has to come down quite a lot. I don't know that we can resize it that small without like literally redoing the whole ring. So he's like, come back. So I came back this week. And she went to get the actual jeweler, and he came down. And he comes down, and he's like, yeah, we can do this. We can do that. And he's like talking me through it, which I was just like, yeah, whatever. I don't need to know. Just do it.
You're just like, make it fit my hand.
But then okay. So I was there for 25 minutes after that. After he told me that, 25 minutes. I needed to go meet my husband for coffee, but I was stuck for 25 minutes with this guy. I didn't really understand. It was the most awkward situation. The lady next to him was holding the receipt for me to come and pick it back up for 25 minutes while he stood there and just like chatted me up, I would say. I don't know what it was. He was like going on. I'll tell you, Mr. Jeweler Man is 49 years old. He lives in a in a semi in town. He just moved, and he was telling me about redoing his kitchen. And he made I couldn't really tell what was going on, but the conversation, he was asking me about something, and it turned to Brighton, which we all know Brighton's by like the seaside, if you're not from the UK. And he proceeds to tell me about, I remember going there and taking my son there a long time ago. He's like 40 now or whatever, 30. And we went to this dolphin show. There was dolphins there at one time. And the dolphins started shagging. And so they had to like close the curtain. I was trying to explain to my son about what they were doing, because he was saying they were performing different kinds of tricks. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
I know. Like, I just came in to get my ring resized. I didn't want to hear about freaking, the dolphins mating. Like, what is going on here?
I could understand if it was like an on-topic conversation, like he was talking about diamonds or a ruby he once had. But like, talking about dolphins fucking is just weird. It's just weird.
Yeah.
And I think I know the jewelers because I think I go there.
I know. I bet you do. We'll discuss not here.
Next time you go
do.
in, ask him about Brighton.
Yeah.
He's never chatted me up. I'm fucking furious.
And 25 minutes I was there, and he kept saying things like, he's like, yeah, well, your age, you're so young. And I'm like, dude, I'm not that young. But I had a hat on, and I didn't have any makeup on. I just finished my work. I was like sweaty and gross. Like I just wanted to run by and like drop it off. And then I was like, it was the most bizarre turn of conversation. And I just couldn't get away, because every time I've been trying to, when you try to wait for that break and you're like, so you can just leave, it just didn't happen, and I couldn't get away. So I missed my coffee date. So
Jesus.
That was my awkward encounter of the week.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Murder Friends, the podcast where 3 friends from 3 different countries talk about murder. My name's Lana, and I'm Canadian.
I'm Anna, and I'm American.
My name's Hannah, and I'm British.
So sit back and relax. You are among friends, and let's talk murder.
Before we talk about murder, have I told you about my ghost?
No.
Okay. You're like, excuse me.
Yes.
So I live in a really old house. It's not really old, but it's like older. And I'm convinced that it's got a ghost in it because weird things happen like all the time. And normally I just kind of like ignore it. So I'll come down in the morning and there'll be like a cupboard door open. Or once my friend came over and she left her keys on my kitchen right side. And we went into like my lounge to get some wine, and we came back in to the kitchen and her keys were in the middle of the kitchen floor.
Oh, I just gotta chill.
Yeah. I mean, you hear footsteps and you hear like knocking and tapping and things, which I just thought the house is old and creaky. But yeah, I've always been like, my house is haunted in like a jokey fashion. But the other day I was getting something out of my car and I was walking back down the side of my house, and my postman walked around the corner, and like, do you know when you live in like a quiet area, you kind of like know your postman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know my postman. He's called Steve. Lovely man. Big fan. He was just like, how did you get around there? I was like, I was just getting something out of my car, Steve. Like, calm down. Because he had something for me to sign for. And he was like, no, you were in the house. You were in the house a minute ago. I saw you in the window. I was like, excuse me, bitch.
Oh, no.
So there's me panicking, thinking there's someone inside my house. So I'm like flicking on like the security cameras on my phone and like shaking. And there's nothing in my house at all. So he gives me my parcel. And like I signed for it, and then he just fucks off. I'm like, thanks, Steve. Don't worry,
Cheers,
mate.
Steve.
Don't worry. I'll go in my haunted house alone. So I open the front door. One of my cats comes like screaming towards me, like all puffed up and fluffed up. I couldn't find the other one, and now I'm convinced that there was a ghost in my house, looking out a window at my postman.
Oh,
God.
But my postman was like adamant that someone was in my house.
I have 2 theories on that.
a
Number
ghost.
1. Well, my number 1 theory, perhaps it's your creepy ass dolls.
Leave my creepy
Coming
ass
to
dolls
life.
alone.
Oh, yes. I
Yeah.
don't think we've discussed all the dolls yet.
No, we need
You
to talk
say
about
all
that.
the dolls like I've got a fucking huge collection of them.
If there's more than one, you're allowed to say all the dolls.
One isn't even a doll. One is a creepy doll. Don't you dare talk about Glenda, because I will send her to you. And then your house will be haunted. And the other one is a marionette.
Okay. All. Anyway.
We'll put pictures of them on our Instagram and you can decide whether or not they're creepy.
Yes, we will do that. Number 2 theory, it's actually your cats fucking with you. Like, I just imagine you walk out of the house and like you know, like they stand on top of each other's shoulders and like they're up and they have like
kids
a little
in a trench coat?
Yeah, like in a trench
Put one of my
coat.
dresses on.
Yeah. That's my second theory. Could happen.
I don't like it. But now I'm just like scared to be in my house on my own.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
blame
it's one
you.
thing to hear like knocking and footsteps and stuff because, I mean, any old house, you're going to hear that sort of stuff. But to have someone else say that they see something is like nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
That is horrible.
So yeah.
So how are you sleeping?
I don't want to talk about it.
So for true crime news today, I've got a few things for you. Now, the first thing is Peter Madsen, Russian artist, marries Danish submarine killer. So do you guys know, do you remember Peter Madsen, the guy that killed the journalist Kim Wall? Do you on a submarine?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes,
Right.
yes. Oh my
I haven't
God.
heard that name in ages.
I know. Somebody married him. Right. So a Russian artist living in self-imposed exile in Finland has defended her marriage to the notorious jailed Danish killer. Her name is Jenny Kerpen. She married him on the 19th of December, according to her Facebook page. She has received many hostile messages, some calling her crazy. No fucking shit, lady. So obviously, if you're not sure, he was given a life sentence on April 2018 for the sexual assault and murder of Swedish journalist Kim Wall. Her dismembered body was found after she had boarded his submarine. He wrote on Friday, so this was from 2 weeks ago, that he won't be able to have any access to internet to receive and react to your messages. If you still have any need to interact, feel free to contact my wife via Facebook. This whole thing's just bizarre. So she lives in the Finnish town of Salo. Salo, am I saying that right? Salo?
Oh, God
I'm not
knows.
sure. I apologize, Finland.
All of Finland.
The whole country. She actually lives with another Russian, which I'm really confused about this. This whole situation is just odd. Another Russian political exile, and they have 2 infant sons. So
Together?
I'm so confused. But she's now married to. The infant suggests very young children, obviously.
Yeah.
Tiny babies. It's strange. So he's now admitted definitely to dismembering her body, but he claimed that she died in an accident on the submarine that he built, but her headless torso washed up on the beach, and divers found it later on. So originally, she described herself as an artist, and she told BBC that her marriage to Madsen was a genuine, not just part of an art project she had announced beforehand. So she is doing apparently an art project called This Is Not the Peter We Knew. But then now she's claimed it's genuine and she's fallen in love with him. So that's where we are with that. I just thought that was an interesting... What do you think? Do you think prisoners should be allowed to get married and have, like, do all these things?
Yeah, 100%. But I question the sincerity.
I know. It's just very odd.
I mean, if you love someone, yeah, get married, but...
It kind of reminds me of, in Canada, we have Paul Bernardo, who I haven't done for a true crime yet because I don't know how to make that story not horrific. But he was like this huge murderous rapist in Canada and is in prison for life. And he gets, he's married. As far as I know, he's still married. He gets like attention for that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of stuff in the news about how we shouldn't be writing stories about that. Like, he does not need to be in the newspaper anymore. Like, we can just go ahead and forget about him. And there's actually drama. He wrote, I think it was Paul Bernardo, he wrote a book from prison and got it published on Amazon and was making money from it until finally people were like, you need to pull this off of Amazon, please. Like, he does not need any more attention, nor does this, the submarine guy. Like, they can get married, sure, but they don't need that attention.
I know in the UK, you're not allowed to, like, profit off your...
Yeah, neither in the US, too.
You? Yeah, because there was that woman, Gemma, she helped her husband fake his death. He went kayaking or something. And then she wrote a book, and she was on, like, This Morning and stuff, which is, like, a morning breakfast show in the UK.
Yeah. And
that was, like, a really big... Everyone was kind of, like, calling that into question about whether or not she should have been allowed to do that in the first place.
That's fair. Yeah, that week, I think they call it the Son of Sam law in America because is it David Berkowitz? Is that his name? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He, I think, wrote a book. That's when that issue came into play. He was trying to profit off his crimes as well, and then they've, stopped all that. So it's interesting anyway. I don't know. I guess I'll never understand fans of murderers. You see it sometimes, like, because obviously we're really into true crime, but in no way do I glorify, like, serial killers. Like, who's your favorite serial killer? It's like, none of them, because it's
They're
awful. Like,
yeah.
No. All right, my next true crime news is an update on Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, there has been probably one of the biggest conspiracy theories I've seen in my entire life is the fact that, in fact, he did not kill himself. And obviously there was the memes that went around for a solid, 2 months. But so recently, prosecutors have said that the suicide attempt video, a lot of the footage has been permanently deleted. So the videos from that night.
Seems reasonable.
Seems legit, yeah.
So the prosecutors have announced that they saved the wrong floor, apparently, of the videos. Because obviously, you know how it goes. Like, a lot of times it will eventually tape over. Not tape over, but it will wipe it. And then after however long, whether it be a week or a few days or whatever it is, well, apparently they saved the wrong floor. So that's convenient.
I think it's interesting that with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, that has been, I think, like the most... I can't think of the word. Okay, so we are interested in conspiracy theories because, of course, and we talk about different ones on the podcast or just, when we're getting coffee like regular humans.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ones that aren't so well known. And I feel like the Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself is the most like mainstream conspiracy theory. Like your 10-year-old nephew knows about it and your 80-year-old grandfather knows about it. Like everybody is in on this one.
Do you think that was down to all the memes? Because that was like, I'm not being that was the highlight of the decade last year, wasn't it? It was the Epstein memes. Some of them were so good. Some of them were so clever. I loved it.
Yeah, I think we had a lot that we shared in our WhatsApp group. Just back and forth.
Just back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein memes. Yeah, also, they released a bunch of, which you can, if you want to, look online, which I think even like the Daily Mail or the Daily Fail published. They showed his like actual pictures of his body. They published those and his neck.
I saw those.
Did you see those? And they saw his neck because I guess it's a bit like controversial about some of the bones that were broken, like in his neck, are actually more conducive of like being strangulated rather than hanging, and that's
the pictures that I saw. There was a couple of his cell, and there was like orange jumpsuits everywhere, and it's like, why does he have so many orange? Like, what are you like? That makes no sense. And I guess the idea was that he had tied some of the jumpsuits together to strangle himself, but the pictures were strange because the ligature marks on his neck are quite low down, so it kind of looks like if somebody was pulling it from behind and you are moving forward, like it would kind of come down, if that makes sense at all. Whereas like if you had hung, it would be quite high up, right, because of the weight and stuff. So everybody was like, conspiracy. And
it's just fueling the fire, the conspiracy fire, honestly. So yeah, I wanted to share those updates because that was, new. And I don't think anybody actually believes that he died by suicide. I'm pretty sure everyone is convinced. All right, my final one today, which is pretty grim, but I wanted to share it. And that was, and actually Hannah brought this to my attention a little while back. Man, 29, arrested as Britain's worst pedophile, Richard Huckle, stabbed to death in cell. So if you're not in the UK, Richard Huckle was basically one of the most prolific pedophiles ever that they've been able to ever like sort of prove, take to jail, etc., try. And a 29-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder after Richard Huckle died at HMP Full Sutton in Yorkshire on October 13th. Huckle was fatally stabbed in his cell with a makeshift blade, and now recently they've arrested who they believe did it. So a little bit about him. He was given 22 life sentences at the Old Bailey in 2016 for an unprecedented number of offenses against children between 6 months and 12 years. And I won't go too far into any of that, but basically he's actually from Kent, and what he used to do was sell images on the dark web. He was actually writing a book about how to abuse children, and what he did was he masked himself he would go to like Malaysia and places like that where he was trying to help underprivileged children and masking it like with the church, when actually what he was doing is for the sole purpose of child abuse. But I believe the Australian authorities sort of discovered it all and were able to find him. They alerted Britain about it, and they arrested him at the airport, and that's how he was caught. But obviously he got a different kind of justice, which I know it's kind of like notorious that pedophiles and like people who do things to children don't usually fare very well in prison, do they?
No, not at all. But to be honest with you, I'm not going to cry myself to sleep about it. So.
No.
Because he is disgusting.
Yeah, no, it was really awful. But I guess in a way, somebody took a different form of justice.
Shouldn't have done it.
Shouldn't have done it, yeah.
So this week for our review section, I wanted to talk about the Confession Killer. Now, I know we were all sort of at different spots. Did you guys end up finishing it, or did you watch a little bit of it?
I watched, I think, 3 episodes.
So did I.
Around Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Confession Killer is 5 parts, but to be honest, quite a bit was padded out, I'd say. So I mean, you guys got the gist of it, really.
Yeah.
But it is all about Henry Lee Lucas, who allegedly, technically confessed to over 100 crimes to the Texas Rangers. So I actually, and I don't know why, and please don't judge me, I've never heard of him before, and I don't know how that is possible.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Have you heard the name before or anything?
No, nothing. Which is,
wow.
After watching it, and as I was watching it, I'm just like, how do I not know this guy's name? Like, he's associated with hundreds of crimes, rightfully or wrongfully.
Yeah.
Obviously, you make your decision. But So the Netflix documentary primarily focuses on once he was arrested and then covers the questions sort of surrounding all of these confessions. But as someone who had no idea who Henry was, I thought it might be interesting to sort of talk about his prior history and kind of give you a background on him. And then if you want, you can go into the confession killer. And there's still like so much more information, but it doesn't really cover this kind of stuff. So Henry was born in 1936 in a one-room log cabin in Virginia, if you want to just set the scene. His mother was a sex worker, and there are a couple of accounts that she would force Henry to watch her with her clients, and a lot of sort of child abuse stuff happening. Not very nice. 10 years, or before he was even 10, Henry's alcoholic father died of hypothermia. When he was coming home drunk, he collapsed outside in a blizzard and died. Shortly thereafter, while in 6th grade, Henry dropped out of school and ran away from home, drifting sort of throughout Virginia. I think the beginning portion of his life is very interesting when you start watching the documentary, but we'll get to that in a sec. Henry claimed to have committed his first murder in 1951 when he strangled 17-year-old Laura Burnsley after she refused his sexual advances. As with most of his confessions, which we'll get into later, he later retracted this particular crime. But that is in 1951. She was just 17. A few years later, he was convicted of dozens of burglary offenses and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Fascinatingly, he escapes and then is recaptured 3 days later and serves his time until 1959. At this point, he ditches Virginia. He's going to try something new. He goes to Michigan to live with his half-sister, Opal. So around this time, Henry was actually engaged to marry a pen pal with whom he corresponded while he was incarcerated, which kind of comes into the submarine killer guy.
Yes, exactly.
I don't really know the mindset there. I'm sure there's lots of stuff you could unpick, but that is for another day. So when his mother, who's still alive at this point, comes to visit them at Christmas, she disapproves of the fiance. She insists that he has to move back to Virginia. You know, he has to look after his mother. She's very disappointed and upset with all his choices, all that kind of stuff. They have this big argument, and she heads back to Virginia. In 1960, Henry decides he's going to kill his mother.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I mean, we're going there. That's where he's going.
All right.
Apparently, they had some sort of huge blowout fight, and he claims that he struck her over the head with a broom, or he claims Mom hit him with a broom, so he stabbed her with a knife, because
Obviously,
that seems about even.
Yeah, definitely.
At this point, he flees the scene. The half-sister Opal comes back, finds that the mother is actually still alive, but is like heavily bleeding. They call an ambulance, but the mother does die. However, the official police report stated she died of a heart attack, not from the actual assault itself, which is very strange. So Henry claims that he killed his mother in self-defense, but his claim was rejected and he was sentenced to prison in Michigan for second-degree murder. After serving just 10 years, he was released in 1970 due to prison overcrowding. So here we have a guy who has a horrific upbringing and childhood. He leaves school at grade 6, and I think when you're in grade 6, you're like 11?
Yeah, I'd say about 11.
So left school at 11. We think potentially already strangled a young girl, but hasn't really caught up with him. And now he's killed his mother. But after 10 years, they're like, you know what? We don't have space for you, so out you go.
Bonkers.
Yeah.
You hear that so much in these stories. Like, ugh.
Couldn't they have released like someone who had like a drug charge?
Yeah, like maybe
like
someone
theft.
selling a little bit of pot maybe could have gone
Maybe get rid of
home.
those people first before, murderers.
Yeah.
Just an opinion.
A year after getting out of prison, guess what? Henry was convicted of attempting to kidnap 3 schoolgirls while serving a 5-year sentence for that crime. He established a relationship with a family friend who had written to them. Guess what? They get married when he's finally released, but he leaves the marriage shortly afterwards because there's accusations that he was potentially abusing the woman's daughter. Just a whole lot of messed up stuff. But at this point, he's kind of just like, he's sort of bouncing from place to place. He has no real connections to anything or anyone. He's just kind of like a loner, you know, that sort of image. At this point, he thinks, well, I've got nothing going for me, so why don't I go to Florida? Because why not? It is here in Florida that Henry befriends Otis Toole and actually lived with Toole's parents, and he became extremely close to his adolescent niece, Frida Becky Powell, goes by Becky. Becky had a mild intellectual impairment, which who knows exactly what that means, and escaped from a juvenile detention center. So as Henry's sort of establishing himself in Florida, hanging out with Otis, who is not a good guy, and we will find out next week in our True Crime 101, Otis makes an appearance. Henry's getting very close with this Becky girl, and Becky herself does not have an easy time either. She's put in a state shelter. She's not having a good time. And here comes Henry. He convinces her to run away with him, and they live on the road, eventually traveling to California, where they find this woman who says, hey, could you guys look after my ill mother, Kate Rich? So naturally they're like, sure, we'll do it. It's a job. We're in California. They eventually get basically run off the property and off the job because the Rich family accuses Henry and the girl Becky of basically like writing bad checks and, not working, which was, a big surprise. So we go back to another period of just sort of jumping around him and Becky, not really landing anywhere. At one point, Henry says that they fought. And the girl, Becky, was homesick for Florida and she just kind of wanted to go home. So Henry was like, whatever, and leaves her at a truck stop in Texas. In 1983, he's arrested just for unlawful possession of a firearm by Texas Ranger Phil Ryan. So he's arrested for the firearm charge. And later, this is where all the confessions start coming. He confesses to the murder of Becky and of the ill older mother, Kate Rich. So basically, this is where the documentary sort of starts. He basically says, I've killed these women, so I thought you guys should know. He leads the police to the bodies of, 2 bodies. But because the forensic evidence was inconclusive, they couldn't positively identify. But because he was so, I don't want to say understanding, but he was so cooperative that they really took him as credible. Like he confessed, he showed them to a place where there were 2 bodies, so everything sort of seems okay. And then, like we see in the documentary, he says something like, so what are we going to do about the other 100 women that I've killed? It's like, excuse me?
What?
So this is kind of where the documentary starts off. He's been arrested on an unrelated charge. He confesses to these 2 women murders. He then confesses to hundreds more. And the documentary goes into, well, are these confessions legit? Because if they are, he is one of the brightest and most infamous serial killers of our time. But what I found really interesting in doing the research into this is his past. And I mean, from my opinion, he seems violent. Like, he did kill his mother. That's pretty certain. And they do suspect that he did kill Becky and that older woman. So he is capable of killing. But then when you start seeing all the evidence of these cases, hundreds and hundreds of murders, and he never leaves any evidence. And you think, this guy left school at 11, and we're claiming that he is like the most prolific serial killer that never left evidence, that never left fingerprints or anything. Like, yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out the documentary. It is a little bit padded, so if you need to skip over stuff, you kind of have to. But what did you guys think of what you've seen? Anybody go first?
So is that like...
So I watched bits of it, well, the first few episodes, first 3, over Christmas. And I know I've said it before, but I was really unwell over Christmas. So I had it like, I was laying in bed and I had my laptop on my lap. And then I like sort of propped up like the invalid I was. And I decided that rather than write notes, which is what I normally do, I thought I'd dictate them into my notes app on my phone.
Did you really?
Yeah, but I'm not going to lie. I took a lot of cold medicine. And they are looking back at them, not a clue. So I'll read you one. I'm going to pick my favourite one. There are 4. And then I just start ranting about something else, which I'm not going to bore you with. So the last one was, it was such obvious bullshit, though he killed this payment women, all of these people, just so he could have had these better provision. It is just so he cared, and I get soft drinks, walk around with handcuffs on. It's bollocks, I'm sorry.
It's bollocks, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Then I had Clemmy's relationship with Henry She Lucas, not Lee Lucas, is bizarre. And there's nothing you can say that will convince me otherwise.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I think we should have a segment every week now. Hannah on cold medicine, and your musings. Like,
honestly, they're hilarious.
That's brilliant.
There's another one here. It says the unit had this crew come from Japan, and they give him presents, and they're nice to him, and it's like, what the fuck? So yeah, it was great.
That's good. It is. It's rage-inducing, isn't it? Really. You know, because it was just like, I think they just thought, oh wow, this is gonna make my career. I don't know. With the whole. There's just no evidence. And obviously when he's getting more and more stuff for doing it, you can just, like, anybody watching from afar can see what's happening here. And it's a little upsetting. It's just one of those that just makes you really angry. But it was really good. I thought it was still it's a well done documentary. It's really interesting. I obviously have heard of him, but I didn't know as much about it as, like, I didn't really know everything about him. And especially the stuff that you've even, like, continued on talking about, his early life and stuff. It's interesting.
It's almost like if you had a small child and you say, if you do this good thing for me and you help us and you do this good thing, I'm going to give you a milkshake. And they go, okay, I'll do that good thing. And they're like, good job. Now, if you just keep doing that, I'll get you a cheeseburger. You're like, okay, I'd love a cheeseburger. And they're saying, oh, you're doing such a good job. Thank you so much. You're so helpful. You're so good. You're doing such a good thing. And you're like, okay, I'll keep doing that. Everybody seems to really like me, and I seem to be, like, doing some good, and I get milkshakes. So I'm gonna just go ahead and keep confessing. And it's just it's rage inducing, because they were talking a lot about how police officers and detectives from all over the U.S. would come to see him with the cases that they couldn't solve, and he would confess to them. So they're like, yes, I can get this off of my desk. I can say it's closed. It doesn't matter
painful.
that there's evidence that he was in a different state, or there's evidence that he was working someplace else. That's fine. It doesn't matter. He confessed. And it's just like, how can we do this?
It's just nuts. And you also have, like, an individual who had obviously an awful childhood and terrible things happen, and probably very much lacked attention in his life. And so it's like suddenly all these people are visiting him. He's getting things, like, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like, it's really obvious, like, what he's doing and why he's doing it. And, like, especially, it's the most attention he's probably ever received, and you, like you said, like, it's like the positive reinforcement almost. So he's just going to continue to do that thing.
I know you guys didn't finish it, but do you have a rating out of 5 for what you did see? Anyone first?
No, sorry, we were done. Okay, so I would give it like a 3.5. It was good. I think 3.5 or 4. It was well done, but you're right. I think it's padded out. I didn't quite finish it, but it is padded out. But it's interesting if you don't know anything about him or any of it, then it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to finish it. I was just annoyed in like the first episode or maybe the second episode. It just starts talking about like Ted Bundy and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh god, fuck off. It really put me off, like continuing with it. But I think I definitely will finish it though. So I'd give it like a 3.5, 4.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's definitely interesting, especially if you don't know the story at all, and it is rage-inducing. So that's your warning. You're warning it. This is rage-inducing, but certainly worth a listen and a watch. So if you've got time, it's on Netflix, 5 parts, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
So the second thing we wanted to review this week is another Netflix program. It's called Broken. It's one of Netflix's like original programs, but it's produced by 0.0. It's a 4-part docuseries that looks at how consumer products, how they're made, and how they're vulnerable to fraud, negligence, and corruption, which in turn puts public health and safety at risk. So this is kind of moving away a little bit from what we normally discuss. But I think it's important because I think when we think of crime, we just think of like murder or theft or vandalism. We don't necessarily think about corporate crime. So I did initially write a 3,000-word rant on this, and I've cut it down because you would not want to listen to me go on this rant. So each episode focuses on a different industry. The first is called Makeup Mayhem, and it looks at the counterfeit makeup industry, which is exploding in popularity right now. And we can kind of put that down to like influencer hype and scarcity marketing tactics that they do. The second is called Big Vape, which explores how vaping products designed for adults, obviously, are being used more and more by teens, and how they have become the targeted audience. The second episode also explores how the tobacco industry is cashing in on vaping, which I found really interesting. The third episode is called Deadly Dresses and focuses on poorly made, flimsy products that have toppled and killed a number of children. That's quite an emotive episode, and I would shy away from that if you think that you would be sensitive to it, because a lot of the children that have, had these accidents are very, very young. We're talking like 1-2 years old. And the last episode is called Recycling Sham, and how companies produce and market single-use plastic to be recyclable when it actually isn't. When it isn't recyclable, it ends up in landfills and beaches on the other side of the world. So the starkest part of that episode is the influence that the petrochemical industry has and the lengths that they will take to overturn something as simple as a single-use plastic bag ban in a small Texas town. So I'm not going to delve into the specifics of each episode because I personally could rant for hours and hours, as proved. But I've, for a while, been taking a really hard look at what I consume and how I consume it. So I'm consciously working towards at least like a low-waste lifestyle. And I'm sorry if I've ever bored either of you two with it. But if these 4 episodes prove anything, it's that the level and the amount of what we're consuming simply isn't sustainable. Not just for our planet, but also the human cost that's associated with it. One of the quotes from the series is that there is a price tag attached to the low price, and that price tag is the ecological impact of churning out tons and tons of plastic, the impact on people living in areas destroyed by illegal forestry, the impact of losing a child to a cheap dresser that falls over, and to the people living in the shadow of these petrochemical plants who have elevated risks of developing health issues. And sometimes it's like you're 8 times more likely to get cancer or something ridiculous like that. It's horrific. So I think one of the starkest parts of this is, harm is occurring and it's caused by a company or a corporation, and you kind of expect some sort of liability or some kind of punishment. But corporate crime, if you want to call it that, is a really kind of like tricky fish, is like the easiest way of explaining it. For example, it's really hard to quantify the scale of corporate harm. I actually dug out one of my university textbooks because I wanted to go ham on this. But from available data, and I'll put all the references on the website, from this data, we can accurately say that people are killed globally each year on a huge scale by corporate activity. And even on the basis of the known frauds and thefts, the harms associated with economic loss are also very, very vast. So this is way more harm than we would associate with what we would normally think about when we say the word crime. So murder, assault, rape, vandalism, that sort of thing. And it boils down to like white collar crime and things like that. It's very frustrating. So moving back towards the documentary itself, for once it's really nice to see cooperation in the firing line, like corporations themselves. So whilst consumer choices are important, consumers are not the problem, are not the sole problem. So IKEA gets pretty heavily shredded in the Deadly Dresses episode about not only encouraging huge amounts of consumerism. I mean, we've all been to an IKEA. It's a maze, and it is designed to make you spend money. But they also got in quite a lot of shit for greenwashing their customers. I don't know if either of you have heard that term before.
No.
Mm-mm.
It's a term used to describe a company that actually creates huge amounts of ecological harm but present themselves as being eco-friendly.
That's interesting.
So I don't know if I don't follow them on Instagram because I think they're trash, but companies like Boohoo and Pretty Little Thing, they're like fast fashion clothing manufacturers, and they shared posts on their Instagram which were basically like an outline of Australia with a heart in the middle, saying that they've donated all this money to the wildlife, fund there due to all these Australian wildfires, which are horrific. But they are one of the fast fashion industry is a huge contributor to climate change, and climate change caused these fires. So they're trying to present themselves as being like really friendly and like eco-friendly, and they're like, we're really shocked by this, and it's like, but you're literally causing it. And in the end, they actually turned off their comments on both those posts because people went fucking bananas.
Really?
People, they went in.
Good.
And it was really nice to see, but now all of those comments have disappeared and you can't see it. I thought the documentary was really educational in a non-patronising way. It was well produced and the cinematography is really good. And for a show that's kind of effectively highlighting huge problems with corporation and company, they're not 100% biased. They do let the companies have their say as well. I know that there was like a representative from IKEA, on the programme on the episode about the dresses. So I thought I really respected them for like opening up the floor like that. It would have been really easy to not do that, to keep everything really one-sided so it had more of an impact. So I thought that was good.
No, that's good. It's always good when they're balanced, because then otherwise it's just like you're just doing a whole program of like slating something. Well, yeah, of course they can look really bad when you're only presenting one side of the argument, which we see in like other crime documentaries all the time, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. I know this show, it could be criticised as being problem focused, but part of me thinks that's quite good on two fronts. Firstly, it allows the series to be more hard hitting. Here are the facts and you should be scared. But secondly, it allows you to come to your own solution, and that is to be more conscious about what and how you consume. If companies only care about their money, then that's where you as a consumer need to hit them. And also, someone needs to continuously tweet Sainsbury's about their fucking oats not being in a recyclable plastic bag.
Are you serious?
It fucking infuriates me. So yeah.
Sainsbury's, if you're listening, fix your shit.
You. Yeah, we are. We're coming after you.
Do you know what? When you said that, my Siri on my phone just like lit up and was like, "How can I help you?" Because you were like, somebody needs to.
Someone needs to tell Sainsbury's.
And Siri's like, "Hi, how can I help you?" All right.
You're like, tweet Sainsbury's.
I know.
The one that I watched was that the first episode about makeup and what's the word I want to think? Counterfeit products, which makeup is one of the things that frightens me the most, and I don't understand it and I don't know how it works. But I didn't even think about the fact that there are companies that make something look so similar to the real thing, and it's literally full of like rat piss and cancer, and sells it. But like for me, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a legit one and a knockoff one other than the price. But if you think of like, I don't know, a 13-year-old on Amazon, and they're really excited about getting that new color palette, and they don't really realize that it shouldn't be that cheap. Like, you can see how this gets into the hands of actual consumers.
Yeah, definitely. Wasn't there a girl who, she bought like a Kylie lip kit or something, and she put it on her lips, and it literally had super glue in it.
Yeah, because super glue is a cheaper version of something, but it gives it the same texture, like the same sort of look as the actual ingredient. And yeah, my stomach dropped. And she's like, they interview her, and she's saying, I couldn't separate my lips. And I'm trying not to panic, so I'm Googling how to get my lips unstuck. And I'm like, girl, I would have been in a full-blown panic attack. Like, I can't open my mouth.
Rather than Googling something, I'd have my head under a tap.
Yeah, like
or something
trying to
like
figure something out, getting it off. Yeah, but it does make you aware of things that like happen, and I think we're all sort of very much more aware of like plastic issues and the hazards of vaping, only because obviously that's much more like in the news and stuff. But the makeup one, especially, I don't think we're as aware of like that sort of thing. And this past weekend, my sister-in-law was saying she's got sensitive eyes, but she wore this makeup, and she said she wasn't going to wear it again because it like irritated her eyes, and she didn't know what product did it, but like something. And I was like, and I was on it. I was like, where'd you get that makeup from? And she's like, I ordered it online. I was like, all right, okay. And I was like, off what the actual site, and it was like something Bare Minerals or something. I don't know. It was, and I was like, you ordered it off their actual site or like a reputable one, yeah? And she's like, well, I got it from this discounted site, and I was like, yeah, what? I was like, throw it away.
God,
No,
it's really scary.
It definitely brings up issues that I wasn't very aware of. And I found it really interesting that in that makeup one, they were talking about how there isn't a whole lot they can do to stop it coming in, because I guess China is the big player in that they can so easily and so quickly make up huge quantities of counterfeit makeup products and ship them over to the U.S., and if it gets through the U.S., then they're able to sell it. On the odd chance that the customs agents catch it, they can't like go back towards that company or anything, because they can just move shop, they can change name, they can change packaging. There's no real consequences other than that stuff gets destroyed. But to that Chinese company, it doesn't really mean anything, because they've got 50 more coming that are going to get through because they won't get caught. And it's just, it's rage-inducing at that point.
Yeah, another one, rage-inducing, yeah. I thought it was really good, though. It was, I know you brought it to our attention to check it out, and you, like, talked about reviewing it, and I thought it was, I probably wouldn't have, like, seen it or, like, watched it otherwise, and I was really glad that I did.
Yeah, I think it's nice to watch something different. As much as I like the murder-based or true crime-based ones, I think this kind of opens up the floor for more of a conversation about other issues which cause devastating amounts of harm. And realistically, there's no recompense for it. There's no punishment, you know. So, scary. I'd give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think I'd say definitely a 4. I think it's definitely worth checking out. It highlights serious issues, and we are, especially you mentioned the Australian fires, like we're facing real issues, like with, everyday consequences of some of the stuff. So it's definitely relevant.
Yeah, I definitely give it a 4. I mean, to say that I liked is probably not the right way. I appreciated that it brings up topics that we don't always see.
Weird crime time.
So for Weird Crime Time today, I do apologize in advance, but we have another animal-involved crime time. I don't know what it is.
The best kinds.
I know. I'm sorry, people listening. And I'm going to double up on the birds this week. So, Plymouth man denies attack with seagull. That's right. A man has denied wielding a seagull in a fight with a cafe customer.
It's not funny, but it is funny.
So sorry.
Paul Elcombe, I know. Right, Paul Elcombe, 26, allegedly threw the bird at Kyle Towers at Good Bodies Cafe in Plymouth on 12th of May last year. Mr. Elcombe from Greenbank in Plymouth appeared at the city's Crown Court to deny wounding with intent to cause GBH. No plea was entered to another charge of attempting to injure a wild bird. Mr. Elcom was remanded on bail for trial at Plymouth Crown Court on the 7th of April.
So, I'm just trying to picture this.
I've got so many pictures in my head.
Yeah, does guy one just grab a seagull by the legs and just chuck it at somebody?
Yeah. Like, yeah, but how the hell are you going to catch a seagull? Like, what?
Oh, they're pretty cocky though, aren't
But
they?
is that your nearest object? Like, I mean, I can think of...
Maybe it was.
I have so many questions.
They're quite big though. Like, a seagull's pretty big.
Yeah, proper.
They're not they're not as big as you. They're not as small.
No, they
as you
are.
think
Yeah,
they
you're
are.
right. And especially...
If you're like up close with the seagull, I think if I was up close with a seagull, it could probably beat me in a fight.
You'd have to be pretty ballsy to like reach down and pick it up. Like,
Yeah. Did he grab it by like its beak?
can't-
Did he grab it by the feet? Yeah, because I'm thinking feet.
Do you grab
Like
it
a
like
ball,
a
like, by its
ball?
body?
Do you grab like
Yeah.
the body?
or like the loaf of bread, you
And
grab
you're
it
just
with
like-
both hands on either side and you pick it up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like hit him over the head, like with a brick or something, but it's a seagull. I don't know. I have a lot of questions. But do you know, even more so, that they're literally charging him with like an attempt to injure a wild bird. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Good.
Good, exactly. Like,
I
not
hope
only
the
that.
RSPCA and the RSPB are on his arse. That's a really shit thing to do. He's in a cafe. There would have been 1,000 things for you to pick up.
Yeah, but
Question.
Okay.
Did he okay, so say there's an argument. Does he just pick up a seagull because it's next to him and whips it at him? Or he's anticipating an argument, he grabs the seagull on his way to the cafe because he knows he's going for a fight.
I don't know.
Does he have one inside his coat pocket?
Yeah, does he have like a spare seagull? Like, you know, in case that
A
one runs
concealed bird.
flies away, so he's a spare one. Then I'm thinking, okay, so he's getting a charge of attempting to injure a wild bird, and then I just see this like little seagull in like a little suit, like with a tie, like sitting at the desk, like you know,
In the witness stand. In the witness
No,
stand.
he'd be in witness protection. He'd be dressed up like a pigeon or something.
oh my god.
He's got one of those little cowboy hats the other pigeons have.
Or he like
Hell yeah.
you know, he like reads his victim impact statement at the, like, he's got like bird PTSD. I'm sorry, PTSD is not funny. I'm sorry, it's going too far.
He's just like, I used to love going to the cafe where I used to forage for
I used to steal
scraps.
people's chips.
But now,
They had the best chips.
that poor
I
fucking
know.
bird.
And I want
How alarming would that be to just be not only touched by a human but picked up and thrown?
And how alarming must it have been to be like hit by a bird? Like to have a seagull thrown at you. That's pretty
Yeah.
terrifying.
It can't do much damage, surely. It would be like throwing a pillow.
Yeah, no, but they've got like a really sharp
yeah.
beak.
I've been hit by a pigeon before.
And haven't they got like little tiny, they've got like little sharp little bits on their feet as well?
Right, so that's our weird crime time. I know we say this every week, but hopefully next week we'll try to steer, or next full episode we'll try and steer away from animals, but probably not. So
You know we won't.
yeah.
You know we won't do that.
And please don't throw any birds.
Yeah, can we not throw birds at people, guys? You know.
It's not cool.
Right, that's all we have for today. Please check out our website at murderfriends.com. You can email us, murderfriendspod@gmail.com. If you have any weird crimes you want to let us know about, maybe that's not animal related, or maybe that is, send them our way. Follow us on Instagram, murderfriendspod, or Twitter at murderfriendspd. And I think that's all we have today. We'll see you next time.
Bye.